You can really see it here in plain sight as the flashes are going across the skyline. So again, what we now know at this point is that Israel attacked Iran's capital early Friday morning with those explosions booming across Tehran, as Israel says that it has targeted nuclear and military sites. This attack, though, of course, comes as tensions have now reached new heights over Tehran's rapidly advancing nuclear program. We've been on top of this story, covering it for the last hour and a half now, and we're continuing to get in new breaking news as well. So I do want to read this out, as we just got this update in about a minute or so ago. We now know that Israel's attack there on Iran has now, according to the locals there, they say the Israel's attack on Iran has set the headquarters of Iran's paramilitary Revolutionary Guard in Tehran ablaze. This is according to state television. A reporter on air says that she was unable to get close due to the intensity of the fire, but multiple sites in the capital have been hit in this attack, although the extent of the strike still remains unclear. So we're getting in these updates. Also want to show for you some video footage of the aftermath there in Tehran as the sun is beginning to rise. You can see the damage that has been done there in this city. So to talk a lot more about this, I want to bring back into the conversation now my colleague Austin Westfall, as well as with the FDD, Joe Truzman. Joe, thanks so much for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. You've been on the program many times as we've discussed some of these ins and outs of things that have happened there in the Middle East. First of all, seeing that Israel has now had these targeted attacks in Iran, what's your immediate take as you heard this news hit the airwaves?
Right. Always a pleasure to be on, of course. I guess the time is finally here. It's something a lot of us Middle East analysts have been waiting on, right? Anticipating for, say, over a decade now. Nevertheless, I think I've heard two Israeli officials say these words over the last couple of hours, that they've reached the point of no return, effectively saying that they had to act. They were compelled to act by Iran. So we are at this point. So now what we're observing, or what I'm observing, is this flood of information. A lot of it, what you've just mentioned. A lot of military targets have been reportedly struck, including nuclear sites. It also wouldn't surprise me that if Israel targeted the IRGCs or the upper echelons of Iran's military in this strike, at least in the opening strike. So still, it's a fluid situation. There's a lot going on. I think this is just the beginning of unfortunately, a long campaign that we will be observing over the next few days.
So, Joe, one thing that we always keep an eye on here is the idea of Iran and Israel going after each other directly instead of them fighting through the proxies, which is what we had typically seen. But now this is the third such instance of Israel and Iran fighting directly with each other. Where do we go from here, and what bellwethers are you watching for to indicate how escalatory today is, if it is going to be escalatory at all? Sometimes, and we've been covering this now day in and day out since October 7th, 2023, sometimes an attack happens and then the entity that was attacked feels that that attack rises to the level where a response is needed. From what we've learned about this attack so far today, does it feel like Iran is going to feel like a response militarily is warranted?
Right. I think so. The Iranians have they've conveyed this message of a response if Israel were to attack its nuclear facilities, which they reportedly have already overnight, over the last few hours. So I think the Iranians will respond against Israel. Now, how will they respond, right, is the big question. To what extent will they respond? That's if this would have happened, let's say 3 years ago or 4 years ago, I would have been very concerned about groups like Hezbollah, for example, or Palestinian armed groups in Gaza, of course, the Houthis, and then Syria as well, groups in Syria. I would have been very concerned about strikes or rather attacks emanating from there. Reason being is that many groups that operate in these areas, in those areas, are linked to Iran, right? Or they're either a part of their network of proxies, or they're clients of Iran. But what we have observed over the last 2 years, or about rather a year and a half, a little bit more than a year and a half, is that these proxies have been degraded significantly, right? So Iran's insurance card, which was really Hezbollah more than anything, Hezbollah has suffered significantly, right? Especially last year during the war. So, but I still think we'll see, it's very possible we'll see strikes from proxy groups, namely Hezbollah, namely the Houthis, perhaps from Iraq as well, in coordination with Iran. But what will Iran do is the big question, right? But I do suspect what we saw in April last year, what we saw in October, it'd be something similar. But I think the greatest concern, more than anything, from the Israelis is a larger attack, right? A sustained attack, a prolonged attack against Israeli cities, Israeli communities. The air defense systems that they have can only take so much, and it's not, and it doesn't deflect or destroy 100% of incoming missiles or incoming drones. So some will get through, and that happened last year. We observed it on multiple occasions. So there's a lot of threats. I think Iran right now, more than anything, it's assessing the damage and assessing how they will respond. But at the end of the day, I do think Iran will respond militarily. And it's likely as well that they'll use their proxies in the region to respond against Israel.
And so we do just have some breaking news updates as well, Joe. I want to put this up on folks' screen. This has been the news that we've been waiting on. This is now confirmed by our partners there at Reuters that the Iranian state media has confirmed the killing of the Revolutionary Guard Chief Salami there in this Israeli strike as well. So if you are not aware of what we're talking about here, Iranian state television says that the head of Iran's paramilitary Revolutionary Guard, General Hossein Salami, has been now feared dead in that attack. This is on top of one other Guard official, as well as 2 nuclear scientists who have also been feared dead. So again, just some background information. Iran's Revolutionary Guard was created in 1979 after the Islamic Revolution and is one of the main power centers within the country's theocracy. Joe, this is the breaking news that we've been talking about. You're there with the Foundation of Defensive Democracies. What's your response to this now being confirmed officially?
Right. This is a significant elimination by the Israelis. Hossein Salami is he's the commander of the Revolutionary Guard. So this isn't some foot soldier, right? Salami has been at the center of many threats and many actions against Israel over the last few years. For example, Salami hinted about 2 or 3 years ago that Iran was supporting Palestinian terrorist groups in the West Bank, not only supporting them, but arming them as well to carry out attacks against Israeli targets, against Israeli civilians, against IDF troops. So the elimination of Salami it's a big deal, and I'm not surprised that the Israelis went after the upper echelons, right? The top tier members of the IRGC, for example. I suspect we will hear more eliminations throughout the night. That's definitely possible. Again, the Israelis, I think their calculus here, their strategy, at least in the opening blow of this attack, was to catch the Iranians off guard. Not only catch them off guard, but eliminate a significant percentage or a significant portion of their leadership. And I think they may have done that tonight. At least seemingly, it appears they did. Of course, there's still many more commanders and top members of the IRGC that are around. So still, very interesting news. I think there will be more of this type of news in the coming hours. we'll just have to see.
So, Joe, we've been reporting on for months now the idea that the U.S. and Iran, they've been holding discussions about ramping down Iran's nuclear program. That's something that we've been following for a while because there's been 5 meetings that have taken place. A 6th meeting was expected to happen this weekend. By the way, to catch everybody up, the point of these meetings is basically the U.S. is trying to negotiate a path toward Iran getting rid of their nuclear program. That way they don't make any progress toward actually making a nuclear weapon. As I mentioned, the 6th round was supposed to be on Sunday. Do we have any idea what kind of implications this has on that meeting at this point? I mean, does something like this mean that that meeting could be off the table? Have we heard anything? When do we expect to hear anything?
Right. I suspect, as the Israelis have said already, they are attempting to eliminate Iran's nuclear project. Something like this doesn't take, it takes days, all right? This isn't a one day type of strike thing. So I highly doubt there's gonna be a meeting on Sunday. I'd be very surprised, just because of what's happening now, just to be frank, is potentially a war here. I think that's the biggest concern, a regional war. Now we understand, we know that Iran has said before, has threatened to launch attacks against regional countries in the region as well if Israel strikes its facilities, or Iran's nuclear facilities. So again, there's a lot of what ifs here, right? And that's the big thing, I think, more than anything. But what I'm pretty certain about is that any meeting, right, that was scheduled for Sunday isn't probably going to happen. And I think the United States, I think Israel knew for some days now that Iran was heading into the direction that they did not want. And I think Israel obviously took the action or made the decision to attack Iran's nuclear facilities. So a meeting between the United States and Iran, I think it's likely going to be off just because of the attack. And it's likely these attacks or this possible shooting war between Israel and Iran is likely going to continue for the next few days.
I'm glad you brought that up because as we replay the moment that this all happened there in Tehran, you talked about the fact that you believe that Israel saw a direction that Iran was heading and wasn't ready to go in that direction along with them. We just got confirmation from the Associated Press as well, saying that an official spoke to them under the condition of anonymity because he's not allowed to speak on the record, but said that an Israeli security officer says that Netanyahu and other top officials decided Monday that this attack and operation would start today. Does it surprise you that this is what the scale of it happened, being that they've been preparing for this for the last 5 days?
No, not a surprise. I think the United States and Israel, at least I suspect it, have been in close coordination here. Listen, this is a significant event, all right? This absolutely affects the United States. I mean, we've heard, right, over the last 48 hours or so, embassies being evacuated in the region, right? Or rather, some personnel being evacuated in the region, whether it's in Kuwait, Bahrain, and other places. So there's coordination. And also, you've heard from officials as well, American officials, Israeli officials, about some, I wouldn't say negative comments about Iran and its nuclear and the negotiations, but you could, if you look back at it, you could tell something was going on, especially the last few days, just due to the comments from these officials. So again, it doesn't surprise me. It's unfortunate that this couldn't have been negotiated, right, through political means, that it had to reach this kinetic action that we're seeing by the Israelis. However, this isn't, again, I want to stress this, this can't be, these strikes, it's highly unlikely that they're just going to stop tonight. This is a campaign that's going to go on for more than a day or more than 2 days. And then again, the big thing too, again, we talked about it earlier, how is Iran going to respond here? What kind of damage can Iran do, perhaps its proxies as well, do against Israel? And I think that can factor in how this war turns, right? Or rather, how this conflict right now goes. So again, a lot more questions than answers, but I do expect things to continue, this campaign to continue for the next days.
So the Israel-Hamas war, Joe, we cover every day the latest on the conflict. We always talk about the idea that Hamas is funded by Iran, how much they're funding Iran amid this most recent iteration of the war. I think we still don't exactly know just how much of a connection there is, presumably less of a connection between Hamas proper and the exterior forces that might be outside of the enclave. Something like this, though, what kind of impact does it have on Gaza and the future of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
Right. And I sort of touched on it earlier, but if this was, again, 3 or 4 years ago, I would have been very concerned about a retaliatory act from Gaza, right? Because we know that Iran has clients there. It has and we know, as you said, Hamas, but of course there's Palestinian Islamic Jihad. There's other groups. However, these organizations have been weakened significantly, all right, over the last year and a half, a little more than the last year and a half of conflict. So they don't have the firepower, all right, that they used to before the war. Okay, so that's a positive thing for Israel. They don't have to worry nearly as much about a significant attack from Gaza, right? There could be something, all right. When I say something, I mean I do expect, or I do suspect, that Hamas, perhaps Palestinian Islamic Jihad, still have a few long-range rockets that could reach areas such as Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, all right? But it wouldn't be a sustained or prolonged attack like we've seen in previous years from the Gaza Strip. So I think that's a positive thing for the Israelis. But as I touched on before, Hezbollah is still there in Lebanon. It hasn't gone anywhere. I think they still have a lot of firepower there, even after the war. So if I were to choose, let's say, a region, right, that I would be concerned, besides Iran, of course, that I would be concerned where a lot of, let's say, rockets, missiles, and other firepower could hit Israel, it would be from Lebanon more than anything. And again, like I said earlier, Hezbollah was always Iran's insurance card if Iran were to be attacked by the Israelis. Of course, we know Hezbollah has been weakened, but they're still around. So I suspect Iran will activate Hezbollah to resume attacks against Israel. But I mean, that's not a for sure thing. But there's a lot on the table right now. A lot of what ifs, like I said earlier. But out of all the arenas, I'm not so much concerned about Gaza than I am Lebanon, for example, or Yemen because of the Houthis, or the Iraq because of the Iraqi militias. And of course, Iran. So a lot on the table here. We just have to see how Iran decides to respond.
And as you're talking about the wider region as well, Joe, we do know that there have been now reports official there by Iraq's Ministry of Transportation announcing a temporary closure of Iraqi airspace and a complete suspension of air traffic as well. We've seen this across the region. Is this an expected response when there are some of these attacks happening there, the neighboring countries taking heed and taking a moment to step back, clear their airspace in case of an attack?
Yes, absolutely. I believe we saw the same thing last year in April and October. I think the Iraqis and other countries in the region, they expect a significant Iranian response. All right. So missiles, right? The ballistic missiles, drones fired from Iran are going to go through their airspace, right? Through Iraqi airspace, for example, maybe from Jordanian airspace as well. So I think we're going to see a lot of action. It's very possible over the next hours from Iran. And then conversely, we'll see the Israelis attempting to deflect or shoot down what is fired from Iran, whether it be, again, drones or ballistic missiles. But again, like we observed last year, they don't get everything, all right? So their damage can be done. It just depends a lot on how many projectiles, right, the Iranians or maybe their proxies fire at Israel. Again, I think the goal here for the strategy for the Iranians and the greater axis is to overwhelm Israel's air defense system. Right? I think that's the goal. So we may see a lot of, again, drones, ballistic missiles, and other projectiles fired at Israel actually at the same time from different fronts. So I think this is what has the Israelis quite concerned over the next hours.